If it weren't for the Thomases and a handful of other very important people, not the least of which are people that the home has already honored as heroes, we would probably still be in our tight little home over on Gray Street.
Joan and Lee, in addition, made a difference in this world by giving of themselves.
They made possible the thought of the impossible.
They put their money and energy and time in what they believed, and we just really need to replicate a lot more Joan and Lee Thomas humans.
Everyone assumes that, or tends to think of their childhood as typical. When my mother was going through medical school, I remember we'd gather around the dining room table in the evenings. We would all be working on our homework at the same time, my mother and me and my younger brother and sister. My mother was very methodical with big file boxes full of cards, memorizing the things she needed to finish her medical degree. In the course of my mother's medical practice, she, of course, encountered families, women and children especially, that faced hardship and difficulty.
She chose, as a medical physician, to treat the poor, especially in West Louisville, coming from a place of wealth, individuals that she didn't have to see life like that, but she did.
I think her ideals had always been in the direction of wanting to help especially children, but I also think that her personal experiences in her medical practice led her more in that direction.
I don't know if anybody's told this story, but Joan would sit at the table and knit. So the first time I was around Joan, I would say, is she really paying attention? She would knit and she would knit away, and then, boom, here comes Joan with a question, so she really was engaged. And I found that to be a real interesting characteristic. And so I saw it at Home Dances, and I saw it at Spalding University, two places that were near and dear to her heart.
My father's interest in peace started really with his service in the war, where he was witness to the terrible destruction of Hiroshima with the atomic bomb, saw the suffering and the people rooting through the garbage cans at the camp, trying to find food. And my father's humanitarian instincts, I think, must always have been there. But he told me that he made friends. The Japanese had a nickname for him, Tamago, or Tamago-san. Tamago means egg. My father already in those days was starting to thin on top, and the famous Thomas haircut was
born.
One of the things Lee would say is you don't want anybody in the community mad at you. So he was about being very fair with people, and really in terms of integrity, character, accountability, Lee pretty much, he was the benchmark. Lee spent 60 years as a member of our Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees was pretty much an all-white male board. Lee single-handedly went through the process of bringing about diversity to the board. The board became integrated because of Lee's efforts.
You know, anyone who knew Joan and Lee Thomas knew that they were devoted to each other as a husband and a wife team. And if you got to know Lee Thomas, it wouldn't be long before he would share with you the love story of Joan and Lee Thomas. Lee absolutely adored Joan. He loved Joan and professed that many times over to people that he knew.
I believe it was a kind of a community event, and Joan was knitting, of course, and her yarn rolled, and he rolled, and he rolled, and Lee got up and went through every row of chairs to catch Joan's yarn, and then brought it back to Joan without Joan even missing a beat. So that's kind of how that relationship how I hold that image of their relationship. I never met with Lee after Joan passed that he didn't say, I miss her so much.
Joan and Lee are models for others in our society. When people give of themselves to support, help, and develop others, in our case, young people in education with no strings attached, that's just a rare commodity anymore.
They believed in the home of the innocents, and they believed in so many other causes. And if they believed in it and they supported it, financially and otherwise, that just tells us that they were an example for human potential.
In a time when our society seems to be suffering from great divisions, I hear my father's voice on this subject, and just to remember that there's always something we can agree on. One of the things that's very easy to agree on is child welfare and the need to take care of our children, to take care of other people's children and their children in turn.